They told me I was too slow, said I couldn't keep up with modern diagnostic technology, that customers wanted fast service, not old-school mechanics who took their time. I'm 62 years old. My name is Carlos Mendes. I've been a certified master mechanic for 40 years. ASE certified in all 8 categories. I've worked on everything from classic muscle cars to the newest electric vehicles. I can diagnose an engine problem by sound before the computer even finishes its scan. And the 34-year-old service manager at Premier Auto, Derek Williams, fired me because I was too slow and too old. What happened next exposed a $5 million fraud ring, sent 8 people to prison, and proved that 40 years of experience sees things fresh business school graduates miss. If you've ever been told you're too slow when you're actually being thorough, if you've ever been replaced by younger workers who cut corners, if you've ever watched your craft get destroyed by people who care more about speed than quality, this story is for you. Hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what I discovered about that dealership, what I did to expose them, proved that there's no app or diagnostic tool that replaces knowing how to actually fix cars. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you work in skilled trades. I want to hear from mechanics, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, people who know their craft. The firing happened on a Monday morning. Derek called me into his office. Carlos, he said, we need to talk about your performance metrics. You're averaging 4.2 hours per repair. Our standard is 2.8. You're 49% slower than our target. I'm thorough, I said. I don't cut corners. Our customers don't complain about my work. It's not about complaints, Derek said. It's about efficiency. We have a bay sitting empty while you're under a hood. That's lost revenue. We need faster turnaround. Then hire more mechanics, I said. Don't ask me to rush quality work. That's exactly the problem, Derek said. You don't understand modern auto service. Customers want their cars back same day. They want quick diagnostics and quick fixes. You're still doing things the old way. Checking everything, testing everything, taking your time. That's great for 1985, but this is 2023. I understand modern service fine, I said. I also understand that rushing leads to comebacks, leads to problems we miss, leads to customers having to bring cars back 3 times for the same issue. Derek leaned forward. That's another thing. Your comeback rate is actually higher than our other techs. 7% compared to their 4% average. You're slower and less accurate. That's not possible, I said. I document everything. I don't have comebacks unless something else breaks. Show me the data. He slid a printout across the desk. There it was. My name. 7.3% comeback rate. But something was wrong. I recognized some of those repair orders. I remembered those jobs. And I knew for certain some of them weren't comebacks. They were new problems. Unrelated to what I'd fixed. Someone had classified them wrong, deliberately. Before I could argue, Derek continued. We're making a change. We're letting you go. Effective immediately. Here's your severance package. 2 weeks pay. You have an hour to clean out your toolbox. I stared at him. 40 years. And you're giving me an hour? Company policy, he said. Security will escort you. I was 62 years old. Fired. Given an hour to pack 40 years of tools and walk out. While 3 mechanics in their 20s watched and whispered. I felt humiliated, angry, and suspicious. Because that comeback data was wrong, and I was going to find out why. I spent the first week after being fired organizing my garage. 40 years of tools. Diagnostic equipment I'd bought myself because the dealerships was always broken. Manuals for cars that didn't exist anymore. Parts I'd saved from interesting repairs. My wife Maria found me sitting in the garage at midnight on day 3. Carlos, she said gently, you need to let it go. I can't, I said. Something was wrong with those comeback numbers. I don't have 7% comebacks. I barely have any. Maybe their system made a mistake, she said. Or maybe they wanted you gone and needed justification, I said. Either way, I need to know. The next morning I called a former coworker still at Premier Auto. Hey, Carlos, he said quietly. Man, I'm sorry about what happened. That was wrong. Thanks, I said. Listen, can you do me a favor? Can you pull some repair orders? The ones they're listing as my comebacks? There was a pause. Carlos, I could get fired. I know, I said. But something's not right. If they did this to me, they'll do it to you. Another pause. Then, give me the RO numbers. I'll print them tonight after everyone leaves. He met me 2 days later at a coffee shop. Handed me a manila envelope. Carlos, he said, I looked at these. Some of these aren't comebacks. They're completely different problems. I know, I said. Why would they falsify this? I don't know, I said. But I'm going to find out. I went through every repair order, 16 jobs classified as comebacks on Derek's printout. 11 of them were absolutely not comebacks. They were new problems, different systems, unrelated failures. Someone had deliberately miscategorized them to inflate my comeback rate, to justify firing me. But who? And why? I started calling customers, people whose cars I'd worked on, people I'd built relationships with over years. One was Mrs. Patterson. I'd worked on her Camry for 8 years. Mrs. Patterson, I said, this is Carlos from Premier Auto. Well, former Premier Auto. I was let go. Oh no, she said. Carlos, you're the only mechanic I trust. What happened? That's what I'm trying to figure out, I said. Can I ask you about your car? The brake job I did last year? Of course, she said. The brakes were perfect, Carlos. Still are. But you brought the car back 3 months later, I said. For transmission service? Yes, she said. But that wasn't related to the brakes. That was just regular maintenance. I know, I said. But they classified it as a comeback. Like I'd done something wrong with the brakes that caused transmission problems. That's ridiculous, she said. 2 completely different systems. Exactly, I said. Thank you. I called 8 more customers. Same story. Work I'd done was fine. Subsequent visits were for unrelated issues. All of them miscategorized as comebacks. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. Someone wanted me gone and manufactured justification. But I still didn't know why. Until Mrs. Patterson called me back. Carlos, she said, I need to ask you something. After you left, I brought my car in for an oil change. They said I needed new brake pads. But you just did my brakes 8 months ago. I installed ceramic pads rated for 50,000 miles. You've only driven 6,000. You shouldn't need brakes. That's what I thought, she said. But they showed me. Said the pads were worn down. Told me it would be $350. I felt something cold in my stomach. Mrs. Patterson, I said, don't let them do that work. Let me look at it first. I'll do it for free. She brought the car to my garage that afternoon. I put it on my lift. Checked the brakes. The pads I'd installed 8 months ago looked almost new. Maybe 10% wear. Completely normal. They didn't need replacement. They didn't even need adjustment. Mrs. Patterson, I said, your brakes are perfect. Whoever told you they needed pads was lying. Why would they lie? She asked. I don't know yet, I said. But I'm going to find out. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, if they lied to Mrs. Patterson about needing brakes, who else did they lie to? How many customers had they scammed? And was that why they fired me? Because I was too thorough? Because I actually checked things? Because I wouldn't go along with fraud? I needed more information. And I knew where to get it. I called 6 more longtime customers, asked if they could bring their cars by for free inspections. All of them said yes. 4 had been to Premier Auto for service after I left. All 4 had been told they needed expensive repairs. I checked every single one. 3 of the 4 repairs were completely unnecessary. One car was told it needed a new alternator for $420. The alternator was fine. Testing showed perfect voltage. Another was told it needed new shocks for $850. The shocks had maybe 20,000 miles on them. Still firm, still functional. The third was told it needed a complete brake system overhaul for $1,200. I checked, brakes were fine, maybe 30% wear. Good for another year easily. Only one repair was legitimate, but even that one was overpriced by 40% compared to fair market rates. I documented everything. Photos of the parts they said needed replacing. Test results showing they worked fine. Copies of the invoices charging customers for unnecessary work. I had evidence of fraud, but I needed to know how deep it went. I needed someone on the inside. I called another former coworker, Miguel. He'd been a service advisor for 12 years. Honest guy. Miguel, I said, something's going on at Premier Auto. I think they're scamming customers, recommending repairs that aren't needed. There was a long silence. Carlos, he said finally, I can't talk about this on the phone. Can you meet me? We met at a park. Miguel looked nervous. Carlos, he said, I'm glad you called. Because I've been thinking about quitting. Why? I asked. Because Derek is running a scam, Miguel said. And he's forcing service advisors to go along with it. Tell me everything, I said. Miguel took a deep breath. Then he explained. Derek had implemented a new upsell system 6 months ago. Every car that came in for service advisors were required to recommend at least $200 in additional work. It didn't matter if the work was needed. They were supposed to find something to sell. Worn wiper blades, dirty air filter, brake fluid flush, transmission service, anything. If you didn't hit your upsell targets, Derek wrote you up. 3 write-ups and you were fired. But that's fraud, I said. If the work isn't needed. I know, Miguel said. I've been pushing back. But Derek says it's proactive maintenance, that we're helping customers prevent problems. But we're not, are we? I asked. No, Miguel said. We're lying. Some of the stuff we recommend is reasonable. But a lot of it isn't needed, and the prices are inflated. Derek gets a bonus based on service department revenue. The more we sell, the more he makes. What about the mechanics? I asked. Do they know? Some do, some don't, Miguel said. The young guys just do what they're told. They don't question work orders. You would have questioned them. That's why Derek wanted you gone. You would have pushed back. You would have refused to do unnecessary work. Exactly, I said. I started documenting everything 3 weeks ago, Miguel said. I have copies of repair orders where we recommended work that wasn't needed, where customers declined and the cars were fine, where we pressured people into services they didn't need. I was going to go to corporate, but I was scared I'd get fired. You won't get fired if we do this together, I said. If we have enough evidence to prove systematic fraud. Miguel reached into his backpack, pulled out a USB drive. I have 127 repair orders, he said. Documented cases over 6 months where we pushed unnecessary work. About half the customers declined. I followed up. Their cars were fine. The other half paid for work they didn't need. How much money are we talking about? I asked. I did the math, Miguel said. Just in these 127 cases, we overcharged or charged for unnecessary work totaling $273,000 in 6 months. Extrapolate that over 3 years since Derek started. We're looking at over $1 million, probably closer to $2 million. I felt sick. $2 million, stolen from customers who trusted us. I need to see the data, I said. Miguel handed me the drive. There's more, he said. I found evidence that Derek is doing something else. He's replacing good parts with cheap aftermarket ones and keeping the good parts, selling them on the side. What? I asked. Explain. Customer comes in for a brake job, Miguel said. We order OEM parts, premium pads and rotors. But Derek installs cheap aftermarket parts that cost half as much. Then he sells the OEM parts online or to a parts broker. Keeps the difference. How often? I asked. I can document 15 cases in 6 months, Miguel said. But I think it's more. A lot more. This was bigger than I thought. This wasn't just upselling unnecessary work. This was organized fraud, parts theft, systematic customer deception. And I'd been fired for being too thorough to participate. I spent 3 days going through Miguel's data. 127 cases of documented unnecessary repairs recommended or performed. $273,000 in 6 months, 15 cases of parts substitution where premium parts were ordered but cheap ones installed. I cross-referenced everything with industry standards, looked up service bulletins, checked manufacturer recommendations. Miguel was right. At least 80% of the recommended work wasn't needed based on vehicle age, mileage, and condition. This was fraud. I needed legal advice. I called a consumer protection attorney. Explained everything. She listened carefully, then asked, "Can you prove the part substitution?" "Yes," I said. Miguel has copies of parts orders showing OEM parts purchased. I have photos of the cheap aftermarket parts actually installed, and customers have invoices showing they paid for premium parts. That's wire fraud, she said. Potentially mail fraud, if they're using electronic payment systems or mailing invoices for parts they didn't install. The unnecessary repair recommendations could be fraud too, depending on how they're presented. If they're telling customers work is required when it's not. If they're claiming safety issues that don't exist. Who do I report this to? I asked. State Attorney General's office, she said. Consumer Protection Division. Also contact your state's Automotive Repair Regulatory Board and consider the FBI if the fraud is large enough. This crosses state lines if they're selling parts online. Start with the AG, she said. They can investigate, get search warrants, subpoena records, build a criminal case. I called the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Hotline, explained the situation, was transferred 3 times, finally reached an investigator. Mr. Mendes, he said, these are serious allegations. We'd need substantial evidence to open an investigation. I have a USB drive with 127 documented cases, I said. Financial data showing at least $273,000 in fraudulent charges over 6 months. Photos proving parts substitution. Testimony from a current employee willing to cooperate. The investigator was silent for a moment. Then, "Can you come to our office tomorrow? Bring everything." I drove to the state capitol the next day, met with 2 investigators and an assistant attorney general, presented everything: Miguel's data, my documentation, photos, customer statements. They asked questions for 3 hours, took copies of everything. Then the assistant AG said, "Mr. Mendes, this is enough to open a formal investigation. We'll need your cooperation. We'll need your inside source to wear a wire. We'll need you to stay quiet while we build the case." "How long?" I asked. 4 to 6 months, she said. "We need to document ongoing fraud, get warrants, analyze their full financial records, see how deep this goes." I agreed. For 6 months, I kept quiet. Worked on cars in my garage. Took jobs from customers who'd followed me from Premier Auto. And waited. Miguel wore a wire to work for 3 months. Recorded conversations with Derek pressuring him to upsell unnecessary work. Recorded Derek instructing mechanics to install cheap parts. Recorded discussions about bonus structures tied to fraud. The AG's office got warrants. Subpoenaed 3 years of repair orders. All parts purchases. All financial records. They found what I'd suspected. Over 3 years, Premier Auto had charged customers for approximately $4.8 million in unnecessary or fraudulent repairs. Derek had personally profited by $720,000 in bonuses tied to inflated revenue, plus another $230,000 from selling parts he'd stolen through substitution. The dealership owner, Frank Morrison, knew about it. He'd approved Derek's bonus structure. He'd ignored complaints. He'd fired me to protect the fraud. And 2 other mechanics were involved in the part substitution scheme. They'd get a cut when Derek sold the parts. 8 people total involved in the fraud. Derek, Frank, 2 mechanics, 3 service advisors who'd actively lied to customers, and the parts manager who'd helped facilitate the substitution. The AG's office built an ironclad case. Then they raided Premier Auto. 6 a.m. on a Thursday. Search warrants, seized computers, seized records. Arrested 8 people. I watched the news that night, saw Derek being walked out in handcuffs, saw Frank, the owner, trying to cover his face from cameras. Felt something I hadn't felt in 6 months. Vindication. They'd fired me for being too slow, for being too thorough, for being too old. But really they'd fired me for being too honest, for not participating in fraud, for actually caring about doing good work, and now they were going to prison. The trial took 14 months. I testified for 6 hours, explained how I'd been fired, how I discovered the fake comeback data, how I'd investigated customers' cars and found unnecessary repairs, how Miguel had documented the fraud from inside. The defense tried to discredit me. "Mr. Mendes, you're 63 years old. You were fired for poor performance. Isn't it possible you're just bitter?" "I'm 63, not senile," I said. "I was fired for refusing to participate in fraud. The comeback data you're referring to was falsified. I have documentation proving it." They tried to argue that upselling maintenance was industry standard, that recommending services was being proactive. But the prosecution showed invoice after invoice, customer after customer who'd paid for work they didn't need, parts that weren't worn, systems that weren't failing, and they showed the parts substitution. Premium OEM parts ordered and billed, cheap aftermarket parts installed. The difference pocketed. "That's not upselling," the prosecutor said. "That's theft." The jury agreed. Derek Williams, guilty on 17 counts of fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Sentenced to 8 years federal prison. Frank Morrison, owner, guilty on 12 counts, sentenced to 6 years. 2 mechanics, guilty on parts theft, 3 years each. 3 service advisors, guilty on fraud, probation, and restitution. Parts manager, guilty on conspiracy, 2 years. Total restitution ordered, $4.8 million, to be paid to defrauded customers. But here's the reality of white-collar crime. They didn't have $4.8 million. Derek had spent his bonuses on a boat and a down payment on a house. Both were seized. Frank had hidden money in offshore accounts. Investigators found some of it. About $1.2 million was recovered and distributed to victims. Customers got 25 cents on the dollar. Mrs. Patterson got $87 back from the $350 she'd been overcharged. Better than nothing, but not justice. The real justice was shutting them down. Premier Auto's reputation was destroyed. Once the fraud hit the news, customers fled. The dealership filed bankruptcy within 4 months, closed permanently. 93 employees lost their jobs. I felt bad for the honest mechanics, the people who hadn't known about the fraud. But I didn't feel bad for the system that had enabled it. During the trial, something else happened. 38 customers whose cars I'd worked on reached out. "Carlos, We heard you were fired. We heard about the fraud trial. We're glad you exposed them. But we need a mechanic we can trust. Do you still work on cars? I was working out of my garage, doing side jobs. But 38 customers was more than side work. That was a business. Maria and I talked about it. You could open your own shop, she said. Use the settlement money from your wrongful termination suit. Wait, I said. What wrongful termination suit? The one your lawyer said you should file, Maria said. They fired you for refusing to commit fraud. That's wrongful termination. You could sue. She was right. I'd been so focused on exposing the fraud that I hadn't thought about suing for my own termination. I consulted an employment attorney. You have a strong case, he said. They fired you for refusing to participate in illegal activity. That's wrongful termination. Protected activity. We can sue for back pay, emotional distress, and punitive damages. We sued. Premier Auto had already filed bankruptcy, but their insurance covered employment claims. We settled for $340,000. Not as much as we'd have won at trial, but enough. Enough to open a shop. I found a location. A closed gas station with 3 service bays. Needed work. But the bones were good. I renovated it with my settlement money, bought equipment, installed lifts, set up a waiting area, painted a sign. Mendes Automotive, honest service, fair prices, 40 years experience. I hired 2 mechanics, both over 50, both experienced, both fired from other shops for being too slow or too old. I hired Miguel as service manager, the man who'd worn a wire and helped expose the fraud. We opened 6 months after Premier Auto closed. 38 customers followed me immediately. Within 6 months, we had 200 regular customers. Within a year, 400. All of them people who wanted honest service, who appreciated thorough work, who didn't mind waiting an extra hour if it meant the job was done right. At 64, I was running my own shop, making more money than I ever had at Premier Auto, and doing it honestly. Word spread. Media covered the fraud trial. Local news ran stories about the 62-year-old mechanic who'd been fired and exposed a multi-million-dollar scam. Customers from across the state started calling. Can we bring our cars to you? We want someone we can trust. I had to expand. Rented the building next door, added 3 more bays, hired 2 more mechanics, both over 55. One had been forced into retirement at 58. Another had been fired at 62 for being obsolete. At Mendes Automotive, experience wasn't a liability. It was our brand. We advertised it. Average mechanic age, 57. Average experience, 34 years. We take our time because we care about getting it right. Customers loved it. Young people brought their cars because they wanted honesty. Older customers brought their cars because they appreciated experience. We became known as the shop that wouldn't lie to you, that wouldn't upsell you, that would tell you what you needed and what could wait. One customer brought his BMW in, said another shop had quoted him $4,000 for repairs. Transmission service, coolant flush, brake job, new tires, engine mounts. Can you check? He asked. I spent 3 hours going through that car. The transmission fluid was slightly dirty but serviceable. Could go another year. The coolant was fine. The brakes had 40% life left. The tires were worn but legal. Only the engine mounts actually needed replacement. $280 in parts and labor. You saved me $3,700, he said. Why? Because you don't need the other work yet, I said. Maybe in a year, but not today. He became a customer for life. Told everyone he knew. 5 of his friends brought their cars to us. That's how we grew, not through fraud, through honesty. But I wanted to do more than just run an honest shop. I wanted to prevent what had happened to me from happening to other mechanics. So I started teaching. I contacted the local technical college, offered to teach an evening class on automotive ethics and fraud prevention, how to recognize when shops are pressuring you to commit fraud, how to document problems, how to protect yourself. 12 students enrolled in the first class, all mechanics or service advisors. 7 of them had experienced pressure to upsell unnecessary work. All of them were afraid to speak up. I taught them what I'd learned. Document everything. Keep personal copies of repair orders. Take photos. Record conversations in states where it's legal. Build evidence before you report. Know your rights. I told them, if your boss asks you to do something illegal, you have a choice. Participate and risk prison. Refuse and risk getting fired. Or document and report. If you document and report, you're protected. Whistleblower laws shield you from retaliation. The class grew. Word spread. Within 2 years, I was teaching 40 students per semester. Former students would call me. Carlos, my shop is doing something illegal. What should I do? I'd help them document it, connect them with authorities. 7 fraud cases were uncovered and prosecuted based on students I'd trained. 17 shops shut down. Over 8 million in fraudulent charges refunded to customers. At 67, I wasn't just running a shop. I was running a movement, proving that experience and integrity beat youth and fraud every time. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. Are you still with me? Does this story matter to you? If you work in skilled trades, if you've been told you're too slow when you're actually being thorough, if you've seen younger workers cut corners, hit that like button right now. It helps others in trades find this story. Subscribe to this channel for weekly stories of people over 50 who were pushed aside and proved everyone wrong. Drop a comment and tell me, what trade do you work in? Have you experienced pressure to cut corners? Have you been told you're obsolete when you know your craft? I want to hear from mechanics, plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, all skilled trades. Now back to what happened at 68. I received a call from the State Attorney General's office. Mr. Mendes, this is Investigator Torres. We worked together on the Premier Auto case. I remember, I said. I'm calling because we've received complaints about another dealership chain. Multi-state operation. Similar pattern to what you uncovered. We need an expert consultant. Someone who knows the business and can help us identify fraud. Would you be willing to help? I've spent 3 years building a business, I said. I don't know if I have time. We'd pay consultant fees, he said. $200 per hour. And you'd be helping expose fraud that's affecting thousands of customers. How big is this operation? I asked. 7 dealerships across 3 states, he said. Initial investigation suggests systematic fraud similar to Premier Auto. Unnecessary repairs, parts substitution, inflated pricing. We estimate 20 million in fraudulent charges over 5 years. 20 million. I agreed. For 6 months, I worked with the AG's office, reviewed repair orders, analyzed patterns, identified red flags, testified before grand juries, helped investigators understand the technical aspects of automotive fraud. The case was massive. 73 people indicted, 12 dealerships shut down, 4 executives sent to federal prison, 23 million recovered for victims, and my consultant fees were $280,000. I used that money to create the Automotive Integrity Foundation, a non-profit that trains mechanics to recognize and report fraud, that educates consumers about their rights, that provides legal support to whistleblowers. We started small, just me and Miguel. But within 3 years, we had chapters in 12 states. We trained over 800 mechanics, helped prosecute 42 fraud cases, recovered over 60 million for defrauded customers. At 70, I wasn't just fixing cars, I was fixing the industry, one fraud case at a time. The foundation caught the attention of automotive trade associations. Some hated us, called us troublemakers, said we were making the industry look bad, but others supported us. The honest shops, the ethical owners, the mechanics who'd been pressuring to compromise their integrity. One trade association invited me to speak at their national conference. 5,000 attendees, shop owners, managers, mechanics. I told my story. How I'd been fired at 62 for refusing to commit fraud. How I'd exposed a $5 million scam. How I'd built an honest business. How I'd trained hundreds of mechanics to recognize and report fraud. I ended with a challenge. I said, this industry has a problem. We've allowed speed to matter more than quality. We've allowed revenue to matter more than honesty. We've pushed out experienced mechanics because they're too slow when really they're too honest. And we've replaced them with people who'll do what they're told without questioning. That ends now. If you run an honest shop, join us. If you see fraud, report it. If you're being pressured to compromise, document it and fight. Because every time we let fraud slide, we damage trust. And without trust, we have no industry. The speech was controversial, but it resonated. 270 shop owners signed up to join the Automotive Integrity Foundation network, committed to ethical practices, agreed to third-party audits, pledged to report fraud. We created a certification. Shops that passed our ethics audit could advertise as AIF certified. Customers knew they could trust them. Within 5 years, 412 shops were certified. Thousands more were applying. We'd created a standard, a movement, a network of honest mechanics proving that integrity was good business. And it all started because I was fired at 62 for being too thorough, for being too slow, for being too honest. At 72, I received an unexpected call from Derek Williams, the man who'd fired me, who'd run the fraud scheme, who'd gone to prison for 8 years. He'd been released 6 months earlier. Mr. Mendes, he said, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. Why? I asked. I'm dying, he said. Lung cancer. Stage 4. 6 months, maybe less. And before I go, I need to say something. I'm listening, I said. You were right, he said. About everything. I got caught up in making money, pleasing corporate, getting bonuses. I convinced myself that upselling was just business, that everyone did it, that customers expected to be oversold. But it was fraud, and it destroyed lives. I destroyed my own life. I destroyed Frank's business. I hurt customers who trusted us, and I hurt you. Fired you for being the one honest person in that building. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I don't deserve it. But I'm calling to tell you that what you did, exposing us, was right. And what you've built since is remarkable. I've been following the Automotive Integrity Foundation. You've changed the industry. You've done more good in 10 years than I did in my entire career. Thank you for stopping me before I hurt more people. He hung up. I never spoke to him again. He died 4 months later. I didn't attend the funeral, but I thought about that call for a long time, about how easy it is to compromise, to tell yourself that everyone does it, that it's just business, that small lies don't matter, and about how those small lies become big fraud. At 73, I decided to slow down. I promoted one of my mechanics to shop manager, kept ownership but stepped back from daily operations. This freed me to focus on the foundation full-time. We'd grown to chapters in 23 states, trained over 2,000 mechanics, certified 643 shops, helped prosecute 87 fraud cases, recovered over $120 million for customers. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to prevent fraud before it started. So we created a program for young mechanics, technical school students, people just entering the trade. We taught them not just how to fix cars, but why integrity matters, what fraud looks like, how to recognize pressure to compromise, how to protect themselves. We called it the New Generation Mechanics Program. Partnered with 42 technical schools, provided free ethics training to every automotive student. Over 5 years, we trained 12,000 young mechanics, all of them committed to honest work, all of them equipped to recognize and report fraud. And we created a job board. Shops certified by the Automotive Integrity Foundation could post jobs. Young mechanics knew those were places they could work without pressure to commit fraud. At 75, I received the Presidential Award for Consumer Protection, for transforming automotive service industry ethics, for recovering over $150 million for defrauded customers, for training thousands of mechanics in integrity. The award ceremony was in Washington. Maria and I flew out. 200 people attended, including 38 mechanics I'd trained, including Miguel, who now ran 3 AIF-certified shops, including investigators who'd worked Premier Auto case. The president said, Carlos Mendes was fired at 62 for being too honest, for refusing to compromise his integrity, for being too thorough. And in response, he exposed a multi-million-dollar fraud ring, sent 8 people to prison, and transformed an entire industry. He proves that doing the right thing, even when it costs you everything, ultimately leads to success beyond what you imagined. I accepted the award, but I made clear, this isn't my award. It belongs to Miguel, who wore a wire, to the investigators who built the case, to the 2,000 mechanics who've joined the Automotive Integrity Foundation, to every technician who's ever refused to compromise their craft, to everyone who's been told they're too slow when they're actually being thorough. You're not too slow, you're exactly right, and your integrity matters more than their profits. At 77, I'm still working, not full-time, but still training, still consulting, still fighting fraud. Mendes Automotive has expanded to 3 locations, 11 mechanics, all over 50, all experienced, all committed to honest work. Annual revenue, $2.8 million. All profit shared with employees. No bonuses tied to upselling, no pressure to cut corners. Just good work, fair prices, happy customers. The Automotive Integrity Foundation now operates in 38 states. We've certified over 1,000 shops, trained over 4,000 mechanics, helped prosecute 132 fraud cases, recovered over $240 million for customers. But the work that makes me proudest is the young mechanics. The 12,000 we've trained through the New Generation program. I meet them at conferences, at trade shows, at certification events. They come up to me. Mr. Mendes, you trained me in 2019. I'm running my own shop now. Built it on integrity. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Or, Mr. Mendes, I'm a service advisor. My manager pressured me to upsell. I documented it like you taught me, reported it. He was fired. I was promoted. The system works. Or, Mr. Mendes, I'm teaching automotive at a tech school. I use your curriculum. Every student learns ethics before they learn transmissions. That's the legacy, not the award, not the money. But the mechanics who learned that integrity matters. That experience is valuable. That being thorough isn't being slow. One story stands out. A 24-year-old mechanic named Jordan called me. "Mr. Mendes," she said, "I'm in trouble. I just got hired at a shop. They're doing exactly what you exposed at Premier Auto. Unnecessary repairs, parts substitution, fraud. I documented everything like you taught. But I'm scared. If I report them, I'll lose my job, and I can't afford that. You'll lose more if you don't report," I said. "Your integrity, your reputation, your career. Because eventually fraud gets exposed, and if you participated, even under pressure, you go down too." "But what if they retaliate?" she asked. "They will," I said. "That's why we have the AIF Legal Defense Fund. We'll pay your legal fees if they fire you. We'll help you find a new job at a certified shop. And we'll make sure retaliation costs them everything." She reported it. The shop fired her. We sued. Wrongful termination. Whistleblower retaliation. Settled for $130,000. And the shop was investigated. 3 people indicted. Shop closed. Jordan used her settlement to open her own mobile mechanic business. At 25. Built on integrity. She's now trained 40 other young mechanics. All of them committed to honest work. That's how movements grow. One person teaches another. Who teaches 10 more? Who teach 100? At 78, I was invited to testify before Congress again. This time about automotive fraud prevention and consumer protection. I told them, automotive fraud costs American consumers an estimated $9 billion annually. Unnecessary repairs. Parts substitution. Inflated pricing. It happens because shops prioritize speed over quality, revenue over honesty, young cheap labor over experienced craftsmen. The solution isn't more regulation, it's cultural change. We need to value integrity over efficiency, experience over cost savings, thoroughness over speed. We need to protect mechanics who refuse to compromise. We need to prosecute fraud aggressively. And we need to make integrity profitable. The Automotive Integrity Foundation has proven this works. Our certified shops have higher customer satisfaction, lower comeback rates, better employee retention, and higher profitability than shops that cut corners. Because customers value honesty, they'll pay more for it. They'll wait longer for it. They'll stay loyal to shops they trust. Congress passed the Automotive Consumer Protection Act, mandating fraud reporting systems, protecting whistleblowers, increasing penalties for systematic fraud, requiring ethics training for mechanics in states that license them. The bill included the Mendes Amendment, providing federal grants to organizations training mechanics in ethical practices. The Automotive Integrity Foundation received $3 million in federal funding to expand training nationwide. At 79, Maria got sick. Cancer, aggressive. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 14, fighting the whole time. Near the end, we talked about legacy. "Carlos," she said, "you've done more in the 17 years since you were fired than most people do in entire careers. You should be proud." "I am," I said, "but I couldn't have done it without you. You supported me when I wanted to investigate, when I was scared to report, when I wanted to open the shop, when I wanted to start the foundation. You made all of this possible. We made it possible," she said. "Together. Promise me something," she said. "Keep fighting. Keep training young mechanics. Keep proving that integrity matters. Because the world needs people like you. People who won't compromise." I promised. Maria died on a Tuesday morning, with me holding her hand. The funeral was attended by 400 people, mechanics, customers, investigators, politicians, students, people whose lives I'd touched over 17 years, people Maria had touched by supporting me. Miguel gave the eulogy. "Maria believed in Carlos when everyone else thought he was crazy," Miguel said. "When he wanted to investigate a fraud ring alone, when he wanted to take on a corrupt dealership, when he wanted to change an industry. She believed, and because she believed, Carlos could fight. We owe her everything." I took 2 months off after Maria died. Couldn't work, couldn't train, couldn't do anything but grieve. But eventually I remembered my promise. I went back to work, not at the shop, but at the foundation. Training, teaching, fighting fraud. At 80, I'm slowing down. But the foundation continues. We have a full-time staff of 12 now. We don't need me to run it. It runs itself. But I still teach 1 class per semester. At the technical college, where I started. Ethics for automotive technicians. The students are young enough to be my great-grandchildren, but they listen because they know the story. The 62-year-old mechanic who was fired and exposed a $5 million fraud ring, who sent 8 people to prison, who built an honest business, who changed an industry, who proved that experience and integrity beat fraud every time. One student asked me, "Mr. Mendes, do you regret what happened, being fired at 62? I thought about it, then answered, being fired was the worst thing and the best thing that happened to me. Worst because I lost my job, my pride, my sense of purpose. Best because it gave me clarity. It showed me what I was willing to fight for. And it led me to build something better than I ever imagined. If I'd kept that job, I'd have fixed cars for another 8 years and retired. Instead, I exposed fraud, saved customers millions, trained thousands of mechanics, changed an industry, built a legacy. So no, I don't regret it. At 82, I'm still alive, still teaching, still fighting. The foundation now operates in 44 states. We've certified over 1,500 shops, trained over 8,000 mechanics, helped prosecute 197 fraud cases, recovered over $400 million for customers. Mendes Automotive has 5 locations now, run by mechanics I trained, all of them over 50, all of them committed to integrity. The shop does $4.6 million in annual revenue, all profit shared. I don't need the money anymore. I donate my share to the foundation. Last month, I received a letter from a customer. "Carlos, I brought my car to your shop 15 years ago when you first opened. You told me I didn't need $2,000 in repairs another shop had recommended. You fixed one small problem for $80. I've brought every car to you since. I've sent my kids to you, my friends, my co-workers. You've saved me tens of thousands over the years. But more than that, you gave me something rare. Trust. Thank you for being honest. That's why I do this. Not for awards, not for money, but for trust. Because trust is what matters. In automotive, in business, in life." At 83, I received a call that brought everything full circle. A voice I hadn't heard in over 20 years. "Carlos, it's Frank Morrison, the former owner of Premier Auto. The man who'd gone to prison for 6 years. Who'd lost everything." "I'm listening," I said. "I'm calling to apologize," he said. "I know it's 20 years late. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to hear it. I was wrong. I knew what Derek was doing. I knew about the fraud. And I let it happen because I was making money. I fired you because you threatened that. You were too honest, too thorough, too likely to figure it out. So I got rid of you, and I destroyed my own business in the process. I lost everything, Carlos. My dealership, my reputation, my marriage, my freedom. 6 years in federal prison. And when I got out, I had nothing. I've spent 15 years working as a parts delivery driver, making $11 an hour, living in a studio apartment. That's what my greed cost me. But what you've built is remarkable," he said. "I've followed your career, the foundation, the training, the fraud cases you've helped prosecute. You took the worst thing that happened to you and turned it into something that helps thousands of people. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry, and that what you've done proves that integrity always wins. Eventually. Thank you for calling," I said. "I don't forgive you, but I accept your apology." "That's more than I deserve," Frank said. He hung up. I sat for a long time thinking about that call, about how different our paths had been. Frank chose fraud, made money quickly, lost everything. I chose integrity, struggled for a while, built something lasting. At 84, I decided to write a book, not about automotive mechanics, but about integrity in skilled trades, about how to recognize fraud, how to report it, how to protect yourself, how to build honest businesses. The book, Under the Hood, Integrity, Experience, and Fighting Fraud in the Skilled Trades, became a manual for trade workers. Sold 47,000 copies, used in 63 technical schools, assigned reading in 12 union apprenticeship programs. I donated all proceeds to the Automotive Integrity Foundation, another $800,000. At 85, I gave my last public speech at the National Automotive Conference, 3,000 attendees. I walked slowly to the stage. Needed a cane now. Took a moment to catch my breath. Then began. 23 years ago, I was fired at 62. For being too slow, for being too old, for being too thorough. The service manager who fired me told me I didn't understand modern automotive service. That customers wanted speed, not quality. That I was obsolete. He was running a $5 million fraud ring, charging customers for repairs they didn't need. installing cheap parts and keeping the good ones, lying to people who trusted us. And I was fired for being too honest to participate. What happened next changed my life. I exposed the fraud. 8 people went to prison. I opened my own shop, built it on integrity, started a foundation that's trained 8,000 mechanics, certified 1,500 shops, helped prosecute nearly 200 fraud cases, recovered over 400 million for customers. I'm 85 years old. I was told I was obsolete at 62. I've spent 23 years proving that experience, integrity, and thoroughness are never obsolete. They're exactly what the industry needs. To every young mechanic here, you'll be pressured to cut corners, to rush jobs, to upsell unnecessary work, to prioritize speed over quality. Resist that pressure, because your integrity is your most valuable asset, more valuable than any tool, more valuable than speed, more valuable than temporary profits. To every shop owner, you can make money honestly. You can build successful businesses on integrity. You can compete on quality and honesty, not just price. The 1,500 AIF certified shops prove it. They're profitable, growing, thriving. Because customers value honesty. To everyone who's been told they're too old, you're not too old. You're experienced. And experience sees what youth misses. Experience knows that shortcuts lead to problems. Experience understands that trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. I was fired at 62 for being too honest. Best thing that ever happened to me. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. After the speech, 43 people approached me, all with stories of being pushed out for being too old, too slow, too thorough. I gave them my contact information, told them about the foundation, told them they weren't alone, told them fighting back was possible. At 86, health caught up with me. Heart problems. Doctors said I needed to slow down, really slow down. Stop teaching. Stop consulting. Rest. I promoted my lead trainer to executive director of the foundation. Retired from the board. Kept advisory role but stepped back from operations. The foundation didn't need me anymore. It had grown beyond me. Bigger than one person, stronger than any individual. At 87, I spent most days in my garage, not working, just being around cars, tools, the smell of motor oil and metal, the familiar sounds of engines. One afternoon, a young mechanic showed up, maybe 25. "Mr. Mendes?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "My name is Alex," he said. "You trained my dad. He graduated from your program in 2008. Used what you taught him to report fraud at his shop. Lost his job, but you helped him. Connected him with an AIF certified shop. He's been there 15 years now. He sent me here to say thank you. And to tell you something." "What's that?" I asked. "Your training didn't just help my dad keep his integrity," Alex said. "It saved our family. When Dad lost that job, we struggled, but he wouldn't compromise. He kept saying, 'Carlos taught me that integrity matters more than convenience. That doing the right thing always leads somewhere better.' He was right. The new shop paid better, treated him better, valued his experience. We went from struggling to stable. And now I'm a mechanic too. Because Dad showed me that this trade, done honestly, is something to be proud of. I'm working at an AIF certified shop, making good money, doing honest work, following the principles you taught. So thank you for teaching Dad, for creating a path for people like us, for proving that integrity isn't just moral, it's practical. It works." I shook his hand, tears in my eyes. "That's the legacy," I said, "not the awards or the money, but mechanics like you, like your dad, doing honest work, passing it to the next generation." At 88, I'm mostly homebound. Can't drive anymore, can't teach, can't do much, but I follow the foundation online, read the reports, see the impact. Last year alone, 2,300 mechanics trained, 412 new shops certified, 23 fraud cases prosecuted, 67 million recovered for customers, and thousands of cars fixed honestly, thoroughly, correctly, the way they should be. I receive letters, emails, cards from mechanics, customers, students, shop owners, all saying the same thing. "Thank you for showing us integrity matters. Thank you for proving experience is valuable. Thank you for fighting when it would have been easier to quit." One letter came from Derek Williams' daughter. She was 8 when I was fired, 28 now. "Mr. Mendes," she wrote, "my father died 6 years ago. Before he died, he told me what he'd done. The fraud, the prison, the destruction. He told me about you. How you exposed him. how you could have destroyed him with bitterness but instead built something positive. He said you were the most honest person he'd ever known, and that his greatest regret was firing you. I'm writing because I became a mechanic, despite everything, or maybe because of everything. I wanted to do the trade the right way, the way my father should have. I graduated from your training program. I work at an AIF certified shop. I do honest work every day, and I think about what my father did, what you did, and I try to honor the better path. Thank you for being who you are, for showing the trade what integrity looks like. I read that letter 3 times, cried each time, because that's redemption. Not Frank or Derek, but the next generation, learning from their mistakes, doing better. At 89, I'm not sure how much time I have left. Doctors don't give timelines, but I can feel it. Slowing down, tiring easily, sleeping more, but my mind is clear. And I've been reflecting on 67 years in automotive, on being fired at 62, on 27 years fighting fraud, on what it all meant. The world tells you that getting old means becoming obsolete, especially in skilled trades, that young workers are faster, cheaper, better with technology, that experience doesn't matter anymore, that thoroughness is just slowness, that questioning is just complaining. But that's a lie. Experience isn't obsolescence, it's pattern recognition. It's having seen the same problem 3 times and knowing which solution actually works. It's understanding that some shortcuts aren't shortcuts. They're mistakes waiting to happen. Thoroughness isn't slowness, it's competence. It's knowing that fixing it right the first time is faster than fixing it 3 times. It's understanding that quality takes time and rushing takes longer. Questioning isn't complaining, it's integrity. It's asking, is this necessary? Is this honest? Is this right? It's refusing to compromise your craft for someone else's profit. I was fired at 62 for those things, for being experienced when they wanted cheap, for being thorough when they wanted fast, for questioning when they wanted compliance. And because I refused to change, I exposed fraud, sent 8 people to prison, built multiple businesses, trained thousands of mechanics, changed an industry, recovered hundreds of millions for customers, created a legacy that will outlive me. At 90, I'm still receiving updates from the foundation. We just hit 10,000 mechanics trained, 2,000 shops certified, 300 fraud cases prosecuted, over 600 million recovered. But those numbers don't capture the real impact. The customers who got honest service, the mechanics who kept their integrity, the young people who learned the right way, the families who weren't scammed, the trust that was rebuilt. That's the real legacy, not numbers, but trust. One final letter arrived yesterday from a 17-year-old starting automotive school. Mr. Mendes, I don't know if you'll read this, but I wanted to tell you something. My grandfather was a mechanic, 45 years. He died last year. Before he died, he told me about you. He said you were the most important person in automotive. Not because you were the best mechanic, though you were good, but because you proved that honesty matters. That integrity isn't weakness. That doing the right thing, even when it costs everything, is the only way to live. I'm starting automotive school next month. I'm going to learn the trade, and I'm going to do it your way, honestly, thoroughly, with integrity. Because my grandfather taught me, and you taught him, that our work matters, that fixing cars isn't just a job. It's a craft, and crafts deserve respect. Thank you for showing us how. I'm sitting in my garage reading that letter, surrounded by tools I've owned for 50 years, thinking about the 62-year-old mechanic who was fired and didn't give up, who investigated, who documented, who fought, who won. And I'm thinking, it was worth it. Every struggle, every setback, every fight, because somewhere a 17-year-old kid is learning the trade, and he's going to do it honestly. Because I showed him it was possible. Thank you for watching Carlos's story. If it moved you, if you work in skilled trades, if you've been told you're too old or too slow when you're actually too honest, I need you to do something right now. First, smash that like button. It tells YouTube that stories of skilled tradespeople matter, that mechanics, plumbers, electricians, all of us who work with our hands deserve respect. It helps this reach people in trades who face pressure to cut corners, people who need to know that integrity matters more than speed. Second, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Every week we share stories of people over 50 who were pushed aside for being too thorough, too experienced, too honest, and fought back to prove their value. Third, share this video. Send it to anyone in skilled trades, anyone who's faced pressure to compromise, anyone who's been told experience doesn't matter. Post it in trade forums and groups. Help spread the message that integrity is profitable, that thoroughness is competence, that experience is power. And finally, tell me your story in the comments. What trade do you work in? Have you been pushed to cut corners? Been told you're too slow? Been fired for being too honest? I want to hear from mechanics, electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, carpenters, all skilled trades. Because every one of us has power. Every skilled tradesperson matters. Your experience is valuable. Your thoroughness is competence. Your integrity is your greatest asset. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Remember Carlos's story. He was 62 years old when a 34-year-old manager fired him for being too slow and too old. Really, he was fired for being too honest, for refusing to commit fraud, for actually caring about doing good work. But Carlos documented everything. He investigated. He found a whistleblower inside. He worked with state investigators. He exposed a $5 million fraud ring. He sent 8 people to prison. He opened his own shop built on integrity. He trained 8,000 mechanics in ethical practices. He certified 2,000 honest shops. He helped prosecute 300 fraud cases. He recovered over $600 million for defrauded customers. He changed an entire industry. He proved that being fired at 62 for being too honest was the beginning, not the end. If Carlos could fight back at 62, devastated and humiliated, you can too. Whatever you're facing, whatever your age, whatever your trade, you have power. Document pressure to cut corners, report fraud, build honest businesses, train the next generation, fight back, win. Carlos Mendes was fired at 62 for being too thorough. He died at 90 having trained 10,000 mechanics in integrity, having changed an industry, having proved that experience and honesty beat fraud every single time. Your craft matters. Your integrity matters. You matter. Age doesn't diminish that. It amplifies it. Use your experience. Protect your integrity. Fight for your craft. See you in the next story. Being fired for being too honest isn't failure. It's proof you're doing something right. Keep doing it.